Everyone, I'd like to introduce Dju-Lyn from Clarivate Analytics, one of the senior consultants at Clarivate, and she's talking today about publishing strategically with JCR database. Over to you, Dju-Lyn. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Hi again for all of you who have joined yesterday's session. I hope you benefited from the Web of Science session yesterday. This is the second of a series that we are working on with the library. And today we are focusing on how you can select the best fit journal for your research manuscript using Journal Citation Reports. This year is also a very big year for the Journal Citation Reports because it marks the second phase of changes that we've introduced since 2023 to introduce things like the Journal Impact Factor to Arts and Humanities Citation Index journals, as well as Emerging Sources Citation Index journals. So as I go through the session today, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat and our monitor. Maureen is there to monitor as well. Otherwise, towards the end, you can also unmute yourself to ask questions live. So first, I wanted to kind of highlight some of the landscape, the scholarly research landscape, and pertaining to the number of journals that are currently out there. When I was back in university, the number of journals are actually quite much lower. And because of the rise in open access publishing, suddenly there was a spike, and there's always an increase in journals year on year. As of now, we are looking at almost 30,000, over 30,000 scholarly journals published globally. And it's now getting very challenging for you as a researcher to determine which is the best fit journal for your manuscript. Some of your organizations or institutions might be able to guide you along to kind of show you, oh, this is a set list that you should be referring to. But with the rapid increase in the journals and open access publishing, it sometimes is challenging to get the most updated list as well. As for the library, I think when it comes to collection management, it's also getting more and more challenging to determine which journals are the most important ones that you should be subscribing to for your users. And finally, it's also difficult for the institution to now make decisions on open access publications. Now let's focus a bit on the unethical publishing behaviors of journals. Because of the rise of open access publishing, there are certain individuals or organizations that might think that it's now more easy to collect things like article processing charges from researchers. And there will be more unethical publishing behaviors, and this causes a very big problem. So just looking at the statistics from May 2020 from The Economist, you can see that there's a sharp rise across all subject areas when it comes to questionable publishing practices. I don't like to say that they're predatory, but I always say that they have questionable behaviors. The reason is because there's no governing body now in the world that kind of binds them legally to say you must practice a certain way of publishing. So say, for example, if they say, okay, I will promise to publish your article upon 2 weeks of receiving your manuscript, okay, without saying details about things like peer review process, and then they tell you, oh, you have to pay an article processing charge of maybe $50. I go like, oh, that's very low. $50 within 2 weeks I get published. And researchers that are tight for time, especially early career researchers, they are not aware of the dynamics behind all these unethical publishing behaviors. So they kind of fall prey. They send in their manuscript, and before they know it, they do get published. But when they send in their published information to their institution to get recognition, it's not recognized. All right. So what happens in that instance? their research is actually now fallen into the hands of that particular journal because the copyright, maybe the copyright will sit with them or the publisher. It depends. But ultimately, you can't take back your manuscript and say, I want to publish somewhere else because it has already been published. So it's kind of like a wasted effort. And that's why I always emphasize that it's very important to refer to trusted sources to guide you along on where you should be publishing.
Okay. Actually, can I just
yes.
quickly just interject in there to provide the WSU specific part of what you're talking about, because it's really valid what you're saying, Dju-Lyn. If any of you out there are looking at you want to develop a publishing plan, I would strongly suggest, and I'll happily put it into the chat, that you speak with our scholarly publishing consultant, Lucy Walton. Lucy can actually support you in developing a publishing plan, and that also will include about it's 5-step process that people follow, and it helps you to avoid predatory publishers just because of the nature of how Lucy's takes you through this strategy for developing a plan. So I'll pop her details into there, and please contact her directly. Thanks, Dju-Lyn.
Thanks, Maureen. So of course, yes, you definitely reach out to Lucy to guide you along. Now there's also a lot of free materials out there, but sometimes I take this with a pinch of salt. There are guidelines in place to kind of guide, like a checklist to say, look through this checklist and you should be avoiding all these predatory publishing journals. For example, this one that I got from thinkchecksubmit.org is kind of like a very simple checklist which you should be asking yourself before you submit your manuscript to any journal. First thing, do you or your colleagues know the journal? Okay, sounds very straightforward, right? But when you're time crunched, you kind of panic and you don't think about all these different simple questions. Can you easily identify and contact the publisher? Now, it's very important because besides the big publishers now, like the Wileys and the Taylor and Francis and the Springers, we now also see that there's also a lot of university presses. So a lot of universities are also publishing their own journals. There's also independent society journals that are coming up. And being able to verify who their ultimate publisher is quite difficult at times. But try to look outside of the journal's website to see whether you can find out a bit more about the publisher that the journal says they are from, and see whether that journal exists on that publisher's website or information. So like if it's a university press, they usually have a university press page on the university themselves, and they list down all the journals that they actually publish, and then you can kind of match whether you're looking at the right journal or not. Next, is the journal clear about the type of peer review it uses? In the past, it was always about single blind peer review, double blind peer review, but now we are also seeing open peer review because of the advocacy of open research. So we at Clarivate, we are also emphasizing a lot on open peer review now, and that is also published on the documents in the Web of Science if available. But as a researcher, you will want to be able to identify on the journal's website whether they have included this information on their author's guidelines, on what kind of peer review they do, and try to find evidence that they actually do conduct this due diligence of peer reviewing. And one example of this due diligence, if it's not an open peer review, is that they state the manuscript receive date. So when did they receive the manuscript? When was it submitted for peer review? When was it edited by the authors? And then final publication date. So if they disclose on each and every article that date, which is now quite common, that's also one way of getting that evidence. Okay. Next are articles indexed in services that you use. So I'm not talking about Google. Google has everything under the sun, right? But what you want to see is whether services like the Web of Science, Journal Citation Reports includes these articles from the journals that you are potentially going to submit to, right? Because Web of Science does a curation process. So the sources that we use are already screened and curated for quality, and they are all trusted sources. Next, is it clear what fees will be charged? So I'm not just talking about article processing charges for open access documents, but in the form of maybe color processing charges, layout fees that some journals might say, oh, I need you to pay a nominal sum. And all these have to be declared on the journal's website clearly and not sprung on you midway through the manuscript processing workflow. Okay. Do you recognize the editorial board? This is also quite straightforward. Now, because of the sheer number of journals out there now, journals are vying for authors. And one of the ways to attract authors is to have a very recognized, very strong editorial board or editorial advisory board team. So they might put in Nobel laureates, citation laureates, highly cited researchers as some of their editorial advisors. Now, the names can be put there, but you would want to do some kind of investigation yourself just to check the background of these editorial board members, see whether they have an ORCID profile, see whether they have a public profile for themselves, to see whether they are indeed the editorial members of those journals. And then finally, the publisher themselves, are they a member of a recognized industry initiative like COPE, which is the Committee on Publication Ethics? On a journal level, you might want to see whether they have a guideline in place on their research ethics statements as well as their publishing ethics statements, just to make sure that they have those in place and they are following those guidelines. Then if it's an open access journal, always check on DOAJ, check that they are registered there. And also a good place to check for verifying journals is the ISSN. So on the journal's website, because now there's a lot of what we call hijack journals that kind of use the same journal name as an established one, they camouflage themselves as a very good journal with the same name. And you will need to verify their ISSN. So check the ISSN matches the journal title in issn.org. Okay. All right. So that was a very simple checklist, but I know that for researchers, because you're time crunched, a lot of these checklists take a long time to go through. Yeah. But to guide you along, you do have Web of Science core collection that has already been curated. And the list of journals in the Web of Science core collection is what sits in the Journal Citation Reports. All right, so on the Journal Citation Reports, you would see journals from SCIE, SSCI, AHCI, and ESCI. And all these journals have already gone through that evaluation process. And if you take a closer look at the criteria that we use, things like editorial affiliation details are checked, presence of peer review policy. This part for peer review is the evidence of peer review. Content relevance, and a lot more detail. Some of these are what you saw on the checklist before. So these are all done by our editorial experts. And if the journal passes these 24 quality criteria, then I'm sure they are of good quality that you can trust. Okay, so we have kind of saved time for you on this evaluation process.
Sorry, Dju-Lyn, you actually dropped out. Yeah, your sound dropped out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe just recap over that last bit in case everyone else missed it as well. Thank you.
Okay, so what I mentioned was the 24 quality criteria that we use would help you save time in trying to think about which journals are trusted sources. So you want to take that part away so that you can use the rest of the time for your research, and also think about which other metrics within each journal would guide you along on the suitability of that journal, rather than focusing on just trustworthiness. Okay. Now, how do you keep up to date with what's indexed in the Web of Science? Because a lot of researchers tell me, oh, you always have journals that are included, you have journals that are removed. So how do I kind of keep up to date with what's in there? So the Web of Science Master Journal list is the place where you can go to find the latest list of journals that are indexed in the Web of Science. So the Master Journal list is a website. I'm just going to pop the URL into the chat. So mjl.clarivate.com is the URL. And you can go in to just do a simple verification of the journal's name to see whether it's indexed in the Web of Science core collection. This list is updated on a monthly basis, and there is a download section that allows you to download the latest title changes of each month. So this is an example of how the change document will look like. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet that you can download, and it will show you titles that were newly included for the month, like these. And it will tell you that it was in ESCI. Any titles that were delisted, there will be a reason. So there's editorial delisting and production delisting. The difference between the two is that editorial delisting means that they no longer met our 24 quality criteria, and therefore we made a decision to delist them. Production delisting means that for some reason, the journal has not been sending us their data for inclusion. So at a certain point of time, there will be a decision made, and the journal will no longer be included. Sometimes titles change, so that would also be highlighted here. And in the next column, we usually include the new name of that journal. Okay, Cs would mean that the publisher has already informed us that the journal is no longer publishing, and therefore we take them off the Web of Science. All right. When you're on Master Journal list, as you search through journals, sometimes you come across this orange on hold flag. This tells you that this journal is being flagged because of concerns raised by researchers to say that there are questionable publishing practices. So what happens is that we will put this journal on hold. We will no longer include new content from that journal until the re-evaluation is completed. So the re-evaluation for these on-hold journals will take the form of the 24 criteria again. If they no longer meet any of those criteria, they will potentially be removed from the Web of Science. If they met all 24 after our re-evaluation, the on-hold flag will be removed and the content will continue to be included into the Web of Science. Right, so that's the Master Journal list. Why did I talk about the Master Journal list first when today we're talking about Journal Citation Reports? The reason is because researchers are always asking about whether a journal is indexed in the Web of Science. So as long as you see it on Master Journal list, or when you do a quick search in Web of Science and you see the current year, like 2024, then it means that it's probably still indexed in the Web of Science. The Master Journal, the Journal Citation Reports, on the other hand, is a report that we publish every year in June. And that is a report that would show the journal impact factor calculations. So in order for us to calculate the journal impact factor, we have to probably have a cutoff date for when we collect the data to calculate the journal impact factors. Otherwise, if we don't have a cutoff date, the journal impact factors will be quite erratic throughout the year. So what we've done in Journal Citation Reports is we take a snapshot of journals indexed in the Web of Science prior to 2023. Okay, so that's why the Journal Citation Reports, even though it says it's a report released in 2024, the journal impact factor and the data that is included is a 2023 data. Okay, so that's the part where I think a lot of researchers get confused. Why does it say journal impact factor 2023 when it's a report that was in 2024? So the reason is because of that cutoff. We collect data up to 2023 only. Right? So that's why journals that are newly indexed into Web of Science, let's say in January 2024 all the way to now, may not necessarily be in this current JCR. So they might not have their journal impact factors yet. It might be next year. Okay. So I've already kind of briefly mentioned when the JCR is released every year in June. There is a refresh of the data one more time at the end of the year. That's where we kind of finish consolidating all the data points, especially for those journals that are kind of fairly newly indexed towards the end of 2023. Okay. Within the Journal Citation Reports, because we already have the criteria that we use for Web of Science core collection used for inclusion of journals, that it actually shows our selectivity of the content on JCR. We do have an added level of scrutiny for journals where we look at self-citations when they are in JCR. So any journals that display excessive self-citations, and we're talking about journal self-citations, not the author's self-citation, yeah? And citation stacking. So citation stacking means that journals of the same publisher, of the same subject category, cite each other. Then that's what we call citation stacking. So if we see these behaviors, they will be given a warning letter. And if they do not correct it, we will suppress their journal impact factors. So they will still be in Web of Science, but if they can correct their self-citations and citation stacking behaviors, their journal impact factors could be reinstated in the next year or the following years. We do have transparency, so every metric within the Journal Citation Reports has a formula. So you'll be able to see the actual formula that was used to calculate that metric together with the actual values that was used. So you can see the documents that were taken into consideration when calculating the journal impact factors and so on. Right? So beyond the journal impact factor, we do have multiple metrics and indicators available on Journal Citation Reports. Things like which countries are contributing to the journal. This also gives you a different perspective to consider before submitting your manuscript to that journal. So speaking of multiple metrics, I wanted to kind of show you two and compare the difference of these two metrics. Everyone knows the journal impact factor, but a couple of years ago, we introduced this other indicator called the Journal Citation Indicator, which is the JCI. What's the difference between the two? The journal impact factor only takes into consideration 1 year's citation, which is 2023, to calculate a kind of a ratio of items published in 2021 as well as 2022. So if you want to use the journal impact factor to say, oh, this journal in veterinary science compared to this journal in business, based on their journal impact factor, I will not be able to tell which journal is better performing because different citation behaviors will influence this value, and therefore you cannot use that to compare between different disciplines. The Journal Citation Indicator, on the other hand, is a normalized indicator. So we've taken into consideration the citations from all documents published in 2020, 2021, and 2022 for all these years, for 4 years. And we use the metric called CNCI. So I think yesterday I kind of mentioned about CNCI, like we normalize it based on the expected citations in that subject category. So every article will have their own CNCI. And what we've done is we've averaged out the CNCIs of documents from 2020 to 2022 for each journal. So in terms of the time frame that we use to calculate, is expanded compared to journal impact factor, and therefore a little bit more accurate to the performance of the journal itself over time. And it's a very clear-cut metric. Value of 1.0 is always global average. So any journal that has a higher than 1 JCI is performing above global average. Any journal below 1 is below global average. And you can use this to compare between different subject categories.
Yeah, Dju-Lyn, I just wanted to clarify the JCI metric. It is a normalized metric, whereas the JIF is not a normalized. So, maybe this would be in terms of WSU specific content. If you're going for a government grant, and it's not an NHMRC grant, NHMRC grants do not require you to have journal metrics, whereas a lot of the ARC grants do. You potentially could be better off if using like Web of like JCR, referring to the Journal Citation Indicator rather than the JIF for journal quality. And then if you can't make a distinction, and then I would actually go by rank and subject.
Yeah, later on when I go into the JCR platform, I'll show you how you can use both together as well, because out of all the list of journals that are in Q1 Journal Impact Factor range, sometimes you can differentiate between each journal based on JCI as well. Okay, so I'll kind of show that to you later on in the demonstration. Now, what's new in this year's release? That's the most exciting part. We have now 21,848 journals in the Journal Citation Reports now, and this includes 5,871 that are Gold Open Access journals, and we have 544 journals that were given a Journal Impact Factor for the first time. So now you have more journals to choose from. 17 journals were suppressed because of the self-citations and citation stacking that we were monitoring, and it covers over 130 different countries worldwide. This year, we have consolidated their subject categories. If you have used Journal Citation Reports before, you might realize that there were usually two lines or results when you were searching for a particular category. So because this one category can appear in two editions, which is ESCI, for example, and SSCI. And that has led to a bit of a confusion for users or researchers to say, why do you need to differentiate? So the main differentiating point between ESCI and SSCI is that ESCI journals meet our 24 quality criteria, but not our 4 impact criteria. It's only when they meet our additional 4 impact criteria will they be included into the specialized index, which is example SSCI, SCIE, or AHCI. So in the past, this created a bit of confusion, but moving forward now from this year, we have consolidated that list. So we've kind of merged both ESCI and SSCI journals together into one subject category, and same thing for the ranks and the quartiles. So ESCI journals were given a quartile this year. Okay. So this is how it looks like for those with a unified ranking. When you're looking at a journal in the Journal Citation Reports, it will show you what was previously included. So you would see that this journal was in 2 editions, SSCI and SCIE, and they have different quartiles. Yeah. This year onwards, it's just one list, one category, and one quartile. All right. There are certain subject categories, actually about 25 of them, that are pure arts and humanities categories. Now, these journals will not be receiving a rank or quartile, mainly because pure arts and humanities journals tend to have very minuscule differentiators in terms of the journal impact factor. So when that happens, then having the quartiles and the rankings doesn't give it a lot of meaning. So that's why we've taken the decision to not have that rank and quartile for the 25 arts and humanities categories that we have. Okay. So before I end my slide, let me go to Journal Citation Reports. In the meantime, I don't see any questions in the chat. Before I go into the platform, any questions from the audience, feel free to unmute yourself to ask questions if you want to. No?
Don't be shy, folks. If you've got a question, now is the time to ask, because Dju-Lyn is the expert here with these systems. So
no problem. Maybe once I go through the demonstration, there'll be more questions that come in.
Yeah, there may be. Yeah.
All right. So maybe to guide you along on how to access the Journal Citation Reports, if you're using the Web of Science already, on the top right-hand corner of the platform, like this one, let me just quickly show it to you. On the top right, there's a products link. That's where you can access Journal Citation Reports and Master Journal List directly from Web of Science. Otherwise, if it's a new access that you are trying to get to, then go through to the WSU library, go to e-resources, and go to collections, e-resources, and browse for Journal Citation Reports, which is J.
Just do a control find. Perfect.
Yeah, so that's right here. And then just click through and you would be prompted to log in off-campus access to get access to Journal Citation Reports.
And folks, please use your staff or student login details, please. Thanks, Dju-Lyn.
No problem. So once you're on Journal Citation Reports, it looks like this. You don't have to sign in or register to browse the system. So you can immediately do a quick check of a journal. So if the journal is there on Journal Citation Reports, it will appear here as journal name and the result. Okay, just click through to the journal's name and it opens up a separate tab, which is the journal's profile page. Every journal in the JCR will have its own profile page so that you can find out details about the journal. You can check the JCR year. The latest one is 2023. So make sure that you see 2023 here. That means they are still currently receiving a journal impact factor. If you do not see 2023, but perhaps maybe 2020, then potentially that journal might no longer be indexed in Web of Science, and you can only see data up to 2020. Okay, so always remember 2023 is the latest. If you scroll down, you can see the ISSN, so you can use this to verify on the journal's website whether it is the same ISSN. So there's ISSN, EISSN here. You can check on the publisher's details and their address, and also publication frequency. Okay. Scrolling down, you would see the journal's journal impact factor and this latest one, which is 8.1, which is your 2023 GIF. You can click through to see a calculation of how we got to this 8.1 if you're interested. But as a researcher, I think the more important part is to identify the items within the journal that are most cited. So on the right-hand side, we do have the contributing items for the journal impact factor. And these are articles published in the journal for 2023, the 2022 and 2021. All right. These citations are static citations based on a cutoff that we have used, and it is the 2023 citation counts that were used to calculate the journal impact factor. If you're interested to see details about a particular item, there is a link out to view the abstract in Web of Science, or you can view the whole list via this link here at the bottom. View all in Web of Science. All right. Next, we have the Journal Citation Indicator. So this journal has a JCI of 1.16. So you kind of know that it's performing above global average in terms of the article and reviews citation performance. Okay. And you can see the trend over 5 years. So it's improving in its JCI. Citation distribution. This would be quite useful to kind of give you an idea of what content type. Is it articles or reviews that get more citation in this journal? You would notice that this journal actually publishes more original research articles compared to reviews. So that's why mostly the citations go to articles. But there are certain journals that have an equal amount of, let's say, articles and reviews. And that's where you can kind of see the transparency of the citation performance of the document types here. We also have open access data for each journal. So some journals are subscription journals, meaning your library would have to subscribe to it in order for you to read it. But a portion of the content could be free for anyone to read, maybe because of society agreements and so on. Yeah, so it gives you an idea of the makeup of the content. So for a library, I think it's quite useful for collection management to have an idea of, I'm paying this much for the subscription, how much of the content is actually free, am I paying too much? Okay. Next, we have ranking. So this is the quartile. So you would notice that here, this journal is in 2 subject categories, chemistry and electrochemistry. For each one of them, they are given a ranking, quartile 1. Okay.
May I, sorry, just to quickly interject here, just to give a bit of, to make this quite a bit more practical, I suppose, or specific for grants. Say, for example, if someone's going for not an NHMRC, but an ARC grant, or maybe if you're wanting to talk about journal selections, quality within a promotion, an academic promotion, rather than mention Q1 journals, because these are both Q1s. Sorry, this is a Q1, but over 2 subject areas. I would then go by the rank. So whichever topic area is relevant to your research area, and also the rank within the subject area. So you could talk about rank as well, when refer to rank when you're talking about journal quality. Thanks, Dju-Lyn.
Yeah, no problem. Let's take note, there's also a separate ranking for Journal Citation Indicator as well. So always refer to the guidelines from your institution on which rank you should be referring to. Okay, but I think, Maureen, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time now at the moment, it's usually the Journal Impact Factor rank. Am I right?
Yes, that's right. At the moment, yes, it is. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And if we go further down, we have the citation network of the journal. So this gives you a glimpse of citation relationships between this journal and others. It works quite well to give you an alternative list of journals that you might want to consider that is close enough to this one that you were looking at, especially when you might have been rejected by International Journal of Hydrogen Energy. I think all researchers have to accept the fact that you would probably be rejected at least once in your career by a journal. It might not have anything to do with your research at all. It can sometimes be because the aims and scopes of the journals don't match your manuscript. Yeah. So if that happens, some journals are nice. They will tell you, oh, perhaps you want to submit your manuscript somewhere else, and these are alternatives for you within their publishers list. Otherwise, if they're not, they just tell you, thank you very much, please go somewhere else. When that happens, you might want some guidance. You can always look towards Lucy to give you some guidelines. But this relationship wheel can also be useful. The bigger the portion here means that they have a bigger relationship in terms of citations with the original one that you were looking at. So potentially you could submit to fuel or energies, but this is a very high level guideline. You would still have to go into the journal themselves, look at the aims and scopes, and determine whether that's actually suitable. Okay. Next, content metrics. We have the source data. So I mentioned briefly about articles and reviews that we consider for calculation of journal impact factor, and that's what we call citable items. So citable items equals to articles plus reviews only. From here, you can see that for the year of 2023, this journal has 4,832 citable items, out of which 4,585 are original research articles, only 247 are reviews. So if your manuscript type is a review manuscript, do you think this would be a good home? Potentially not, because you might be up for a lot of competition. Yeah. If you are an original research article for your manuscript, great. This is definitely a potential option. So this is an example of one of the good indicators to look at when you are choosing journals, because a lot of researchers are always focusing on journal impact factor, high journal impact factor, high quartile rankings, but they don't consider do they actually publish the manuscript type that I'm writing? Okay, so hopefully with this you will get a better idea. Next is contributions by country. This tells you the region of research that the journal is focusing on. Some journals are very international, so you can get quite a good proportion of different countries in this top 10 list. Some are very regional focused, so it could be US-centric, UK-centric, Australasia-centric, Southeast Asia-centric. All right, so this gives you an idea of the kind of content that is attractive to the journal, or maybe it's within the aims and scopes. Okay, so this is all the data that we have in JCR for each journal. If you can't remember everything under the sun that I've just mentioned today, I hope that you will remember a few things. Okay, contributions by country is useful to look at. Source data for the manuscript type. Citation relationship wheel for alternative journals that you want to consider. And of course, the journal's JCI and journal impact factors rankings. Okay.
This
now
is great, Dju-Lyn.
No problem.
Really good stuff.
No problem. Glad to hear. Now, the next thing that is on everybody's mind is that, oh, it's great, but can I get a quick list of those journals in my own subject category? You can. So there's a browse by categories. So click through to the second tab right there. Our categories are broken down into different groups. So depending on your subject area, you can choose the broader umbrella. So maybe I'm in computer science and I want to look at computer science cybernetics. From here, I can see immediately there are 32 journals in this subject category, and I can click through to view that list of 32. All right. So by default, you would always see the journal impact factor, the quartile, and the JCI in there together. And now I'll kind of show you how you can use JCI and the quartiles together. So say you sort this list by journal impact factor. So you can, by clicking on this header for that column, it will sort by that column field. Why is there no sort functionality for quartile? The reason is because once you sort by journal impact factor, the quartiles will all fall in place. So based on this, if you scroll down, you might observe that some journals, maybe this wasn't a great category to show you, but some journals like this one, okay, so the JCI is 0.85. This other journal, which is above it, is of higher rank and higher quartile and higher journal impact factor compared to the one here. But it is performing better than this one. You would see IEEE transactions on human machine systems has a JCI of 0.56, whereas this one has a 0.85. So higher JCI compared to this one, even though this journal has a higher journal impact factor. So you can use these two together to kind of differentiate in the same quartile of journals. Okay. If you want to include other indicators that I mentioned in my in the journal profile pages, you can click on Customize, and that would pull out like a menu of metrics that you can have on that same table. So you can put in things like the let me see, percentage of articles in citable items. You can put in the JCI rank, GIF rank, and then apply. And you should be able to see all the details here on the same table. Okay, and once you're ready, you can just click on Export, and you can export in CSV or Excel. All right, just take note, there's an export limit of 600 at one time. So if you do filter this down to subject categories, that should be more than enough. Okay, if you want to filter this result sets even more, by maybe the percentile of their journal impact factor. Some institutions do talk about top 10% of journals. So you can use the filters on the left, look for journal impact factor percentile, and set this to 90 to 100, and apply. And that should give you the 3 journals here that are in the top 10% based on journal impact factors. Okay. The percentage of articles in citable items, this is what we talked about in the source data. So just to give you an idea, this journal, IEEE Transactions on Cybernetics, 100% original research article. So if you are writing a review, forget about sending your manuscript there. Okay. The proportion would change. So the lower the percentage, it means that they have less original research articles.
Okay. That's really good to know. I've never known that before, Dju-Lyn.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out.
No problem. It's one of the hidden metrics that kind of gets neglected and hidden behind the journal impact factor.
No, that's good to know. That's great information. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so that's the list. One final feature that I wanted to also point out to you, which is on the homepage of Journal Citation Reports, is our manuscript matcher. Now, sometimes you have already written your manuscript and you just want to know, oh, can I just put in my manuscript and you suggest a list to me? Yes, you can. So you can just go to Match My Manuscript right here. It will bring you to our master journal list. It will prompt you to create a free account. Just click on Login if you have already got a Web of Science account. Okay, and this box will pop up. Just feed in your article title. All right, so maybe I can just pick one from here. All right. Let me just randomly pick one article. Let's look at this one. So put in the title and the abstract and potentially any other keywords that you might want to include in your search. And then find journals. It will tell you that it's matching the result set based on all these different keywords. And you will have a list of 40 to choose from. Journals of Material Science and Technology has a 0.99 score, very close to 1 already. So great, should be a good home for this manuscript. And this journal is indexed in the Web of Science core collection under SCIE. From here, you can also click through to view a profile page of that journal or our master journal list. This profile page gives you a bit more details. So if your subscription is linked, you would see the journal impact factor at the same time. But we also have peer review information about each journal on the master journal list. If the journal is an open access article, then the DOAJ information will also be included in the master journal list profile. All right. So I think that's all I have to share. We do have a couple more minutes to go through, but before I do that, if you need further support, there is a resource center here at the bottom right for product updates of JCR, and also a help section and a link to our learning portal for our comprehensive reference guides and so on. There is a question from Aram. Could you please advise again how to access JCR? It is asking for a login there even for browsing the categories. So accessing JCR from your
You need to come through the library.
Yeah,
guys,
you need to go through the library.
Yeah.
So there's an e-resource, I think.
Yeah, click on from the library's homepage, e-resources, and just go down to W. Scroll down.
Journal Citation Reports.
J, Journal, and then it's in alpha order, so it's Insights Journal Citation Reports. Then it will take you to the login page if you're off campus and sign in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks to Dju-Lyn.
Yeah. So once you're in there, you should be able to just quickly use this as per normal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You're welcome, Aram.
If you have any, let me see. If you want to personalize your own JCR, you can as well. So all you need to do is register.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Dju-Lyn.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So you can click on register to get your own access set up for JCR. If you have a Web of Science account already, you can use the same account. It should just link properly. Once you have your own login, you can actually set preferences, like set a favorites list of journals. You can also do a custom view of the metrics that were showing on the list of journals table right here, like this. So you can customize the view accordingly. And that's it. Okay.
Can I also just add to that, folks, that if you use EndNote Online and Insights, Web of Science, your login for on these platforms is all the same. So yeah, it's all the same. So yeah, thanks to Dju-Lyn.
No problem. All right. So I think that's all I have until the next session that we have later this week. But are there any questions from anyone that still want to call? Okay, Sarah, what does it mean where it shows JCR subscription not active? Are you talking about the master journal list, which is this one?
Yeah, this one, it shows the JCR not active.
Yeah, I think it's because your login hasn't been kind of synced with your access. So once it's synced, it should show that you have a subscription.
But like in this case, you are logged in also as why is it shown as not subscribed?
Yeah. Let me see my subscription status. Yeah, because my account is logged in to many different institutions every time I do a demo. So sometimes it gets a bit wonky. So I have to check with our team. But if you can't see it, let me know. I'll check. But you can also go to JCR to see the impact factors directly as well.
Yeah. Like in my case, I saw the indicator, but it's in JCR, but then here it show as not active subscription.
Yeah. Let me check on that one and see whether there's any active correction or bug that we are trying to solve. But it should show up if you have your access set up properly with WSU.
Sarah, just make sure that you sign in through the portal. Use your student name and number to log in, and use the use your WSU email to make an account on the platform, please. That'll ensure that things are as seamless as possible. And then any sort of if you have any difficulty after that, either email me or email Dju-Lyn. Please make sure that you make the email as detailed as possible and include screenshots wherever possible to save us with trouble back and forwards with troubleshooting. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay.
Thank you.
And I guess that's all I have then. Yes, Dr. Nada.
Thank you for the presentation. What do you see as a reasonable processing fee? I've seen processing fees from some European journals that charge, and one of them is an online one up to $1,500 US, and I personally don't want to publish there, and I chose here because it's so expensive. So, Lisa, what do you see as being a reasonable processing fee?
Yeah, I think it depends on the subject area that the journal is in. So for our journal editors might be the ones who can give you a better answer. But I've seen cases where it goes up to even like USD $3,000 per article. And some researchers go through like grant applications so that when they receive the grant, a portion of that is also for the article processing charges of the final published document. That also helps them to kind of finance that article processing charge from there. But to get to your question, I don't really have a guideline per se because I'm not an expert in the various fields. So but we do see varying ranges of article processing fees.
Just in relation to reviewers rejecting a particular manuscript. I've had one rejected and I've had to take it elsewhere because they couldn't find a reviewer that has expertise in that particular specific. So I thought that's something that's worth mentioning as well.
Yeah, I think what also helps is that, so for us, we also have a service called the Reviewer Locator, which some of the publishers are also using as part of the Scholar One manuscript system that they use for managing manuscripts. That helps them with identifying peer reviewers. But sometimes authors also give recommendations of reviewers for the journals, and that also helps to speed up that process for journals to try and find potential reviewers for niche topic areas that you might be working on.
Unfortunately, it took a year and a half for me before that happened.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah. So I think for those on the call, my one recommendation is maybe have a quick look at the authors that are in your probably niche topic area that you are working on, and potentially suggest them as reviewers. You don't necessarily have to contact these individuals because it might end up with a kind of conflict of interest or biasness, but identify these potential researchers that you think are very close to what you are doing, and then suggest them to journals as reviewers. That actually helps the journals speed that process up a lot.
Just to get off the kinship.
Okay.
Dju-Lyn, thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and your amazing knowledge. We appreciate it. Thanks for presenting to us. And I'll email everyone after this presentation. I highly encourage that you attend the third training session as well. If you found this relevant, you will also find that relevant as well. And check out our What's On calendar for the details. Thanks again to Dju-Lyn and everyone. And we'll see you next time, Dju-Lyn.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, everyone.